I'm Melissa and I'm a lawyer. I live in Palmerston North. I have two daughters and I was lucky enough to be able to take them both to Kenya and Uganda last year on the Discovery Trip.
Kia ora, I'm Naomi and I was fortunate to go on the Kenya and Uganda Discovery Trip.
Well, I think it was a real highlight for all of us actually when we talk about the trip was meeting Jessica. My first thought when we approached her home was obviously how basic the home was. It was just a mud hut and with very limited possessions. I was struck by how young her grandchildren were. Given her age, I was sort of imagining them to be older, but they're little. And, her mobility was very clear that she was really suffering quite a bit from Parkinson's.
The first time I met Jessica, she was sitting outside her mud house and we were able to come up and talk to her. What I noticed was her strength and her resilience and her awareness for her grandchildren. Despite her Parkinson's disease, she was able to open her home for her tamariki, her children, her grandchildren.
So she was concerned because she was so unwell and with her age as well, I think early 80s, and she had these little grandkids and there was no other options for them, and that sadness that she was sort of carrying, like, was such a weight of what happens if I die, what happens to these children that she obviously loved, and being able to pray with her and sort of try to share that burden was quite an amazing opportunity. But also believing for something to ease that burden, which, of course, when we arrived back in New Zealand, there was someone generous enough to sponsor those grandchildren. And so we were able to also see, God's answer to those prayers as well. So, yeah, wonderful to be able to sort of stand beside her and pray for her, but even better to see what he did, to give her some kind of reassurance, I guess, that if she passes away, that there's something in place for them.
She was prayed for, and it was just a beautiful moment that we could draw together irrespective of age, ethnicity, culture. We were able to come together and pray to the Almighty God.
Yeah, well, I suppose for, seeing what had been achieved for her, given her limited, resources, but also ability to look after herself and the children, it was great that had been done. I believe from memory, a weather event had caused that latrine to kind of be lost down the hill, and to have, obviously community involvement to rebuild that was pretty cool. It obviously meant that she could care for those grandkids as well. And the biggest thing for me with the WASH project was learning how little it costs in terms of New Zealand dollars to do things in Africa that change people's lives, like Jessica being able to look after her grandchildren, or girls that would traditionally have had to walk such a long way to get water, being freed up by the wells that are put in through the WASH projects so that they can go to school, but it doesn't actually cost a lot. And I think that's the biggest learning for us, and certainly for my daughters being teenagers, to understand that they could buy a top in New Zealand, but that could have a massive ongoing impact in Uganda or Kenya.
This definitely impacted the way that they lived. It was in their backyard. It made a huge impact for her daily life, just being able to have something like that in your own home, rather than having just a hole in the ground. It really did impact them, Jessica and the family.
I guess just the fact that there are so many villages that haven't been able to have wells put in, or, and visiting all the homes, there's so little in terms of hygiene. There's no water, obviously there's often no electricity. So having access to clean water was really important. I do remember when I think it was actually in Kenya, but we went for a hike and we were walking along and there was these kids filling up this, containers from a tap, like a stream. And some of the locals were sort of saying to us, oh, that water's really clean, it's fine. And then being told by people that actually understood these things that actually it was really unsafe, and all the toilets, obviously drain into that. So we could see what was sort of available if the projects weren't in place.
I think the biggest thing for me was that how fortunate we are here in New Zealand. We can just go to our kitchen and turn on our tap and we've got running water, and we take those things just for granted. Over in Uganda, children, women, men would have to travel often on foot for a long time just to go and collect their water and then carry it back to themselves.
Well, just access, really, like the ability, it freed, as I said, children up to attend school because they weren't having to walk long distances. They were healthier, much happier. We visited schools with the tanks, and their food was cooked in clean water. So, there wasn't the illness that came if that wasn't the case. And the difference was incredible in terms of how the children looked. And
I think the thing is to highlight the fact that it's work in collaboration. We've got the International Needs Uganda working with the local communities and actually deciding what is actually the greatest need. And so seeing that partnership and that collaboration take place was really, really, really rewarding. The local people took us to the wells, and it was really cool to be able to see all their mahi, the work that had taken place to create these wells. They were proud of showing them to us and how they were looking after them. It definitely impacts because it's also a way to show children how to even use basic hygiene, where to go, and it's not waste that's going out into the local area, it's in a confined area. So knowing those things really do support children in Uganda. So not only are they getting these facilities, they're also taught how to use them, and so that they don't get sick and diseases can take place.
Before I went on the trip, I would see these kind of appeals and I'd think it might be, oh, that's a good thing, or oh, that's sad that these kids are in that situation. Having been there, you get to know the kids, and they're real. They are real children who have hopes and dreams, and they're just wonderful, warm people. And it's so little for us. Even in these times, it can be so challenging in New Zealand. A lot of families are feeling challenged financially, but it is so little. Even giving a tiny amount actually makes a huge impact. And I think New Zealand has partnered with International Needs in Uganda for some time, and you can see the impact of that. And it's lots of different New Zealanders giving a little bit of what they can. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but has had a massive impact for so many people. So I guess the message that I would give is, if you can spare something, it doesn't have to be a lot, but if you can go without something, we all have little things that we buy, and it could really have a massive impact. And you're joining with other people. That's what's really cool. It's not, you don't have to do it all yourself. I remember one of the International Needs Uganda staff, came up to us, and she was asking us if we knew this person. She was saying, you're from New Zealand, do you know this person? And we're like, no, we don't know her. And she was her sponsor. And she had sponsored her so that she could get an education, and now she's actually working for International Needs Uganda. And so it's sort of like all built on top of each other. All the generosity, whatever it is sort of built and keeps building, and I think that's a pretty cool legacy to be a part of.
The support that you give actually is very impactful, and it is life-changing. It really does go back to the people and the communities, and it supports them in their everyday life. And so whatever you can give, it actually does make a huge impact. A little goes a long way.